You're listening to the Colts Blue Zone Podcast with Mike Chappell and Dave Griffiths.
Inside the Fox 59 CBS 4 podcast studio, this is the Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Alongside Mike Chappell and Joe Hopkins, I'm Dave Griffiths. Appreciate you joining us today because, boy, there is quite the multitude, the plethora, the cornucopia of content to come out of a certain press conference earlier this week as Jeff Saturday was introduced as the new Colts head coach alongside team owner Jim Irsay and general manager Chris Ballard as well. That's where those meat and potatoes of this podcast is going to be, first of all. If none of this had happened, guys would be talking about Josh McDaniels and the Colts going up against this guy that spurned them. That we'd be talking about a weekend in Vegas, but a lot of that's going to be pushed to maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes probably of this podcast, judging by how much we have to talk about otherwise. So.
Yeah, and I mean, it's such a question mark what to expect from this team with the new coach. I'm sure we'll get to that, like you said, later in the podcast, but what a presser.
Mike Chappell, you tweeted out on Monday, I've seen a lot over the years, but today is messing with my top 5 list. And that was before the press conference that evening. So I'd assume that your top 5 list, maybe even a top 3 list, you could consider it after that.
Yeah, I always want to preface it by saying nothing is to be deemed as critical of Jeff Saturday at all. I mean, I was here throughout his career, and there's no better player, no better person. He's a leader. He's a motivator. He's just grounded, and he's one of many people over the last 2 weeks that have been thrown deep into the pool, and they're saying swim. So we'll see where this goes. It's uncertain. What I mentioned in my story today that was posted last night was they're headed into the great unknown with the great unknown. Even Jeff said yesterday, I may be terrible at this. I don't know. So we'll see where it goes. But what's most shocking to me, with Frank, it was not if but when. I think we were at that point with him. But to go totally off the charts and go with a guy who is without question a franchise icon, with virtually no head coaching experiences, it's hard to include high school, 2 years of high school as a head coach and 1 year as an assistant. But we'll see where it goes. I mean, it's going to go somewhere.
It was a completely baffling press conference to me, and I think that's the nicest way I could say it.
That was very good.
Thank you. About the inexperience that Jeff Saturday has.
That's not a plus.
No.
But they tried to make it a
Jim
plus.
Irsay says, quote, I'm glad he doesn't have any NFL experience, end quote. That is a direct quote from the owner, Colts fans, of your football team. I am glad my new head coach doesn't have any NFL experience.
So you're going in for a heart procedure, and this guy has no experience, but, I think he's got a chance.
Like I said, baffling is the nicest way I can put it.
We're not making sausage here, Mike. All right.
I don't want to know how it's made either. I like sausage, but it was, trips to Mars, rockets. It was, what was the word again? Baffling?
Baffling.
There we go. Well, that'll be our.
I'll throw an entertaining. Point. That was a great, on a pure entertainment standpoint.
Look, there are a lot of things that are entertaining. There really are. How many clowns can you get out of a Volkswagen? Really, that's entertaining. We shouldn't be into entertainment now.
Right. And you know what? I'll make a comment on that. And I can understand why entertaining is a word that comes to mind. I think if you are a Colts fan who is like heavily invested and wants to see this franchise do well, it could have also been the very opposite of entertaining. It could have been disheartening. It could have been disappointing. It could have been all those words. We'll stop there because of quotes like that from Jim Irsay that he is happy that his new head coach doesn't have any experience. And that was before he went into taking a shot about analytics, saying coaches are afraid and they run to analytics, which why is Jim Irsay taking shots at analytics in this press conference and the quote-unquote new school football?
Oh,
Frank was big into them, and this was it seemed to me to be a direct shot at Frank out the door, like kicking him on his way out the door. Like, we know that Frank was big into analytics. He talked about it all the time, and Jim talks about, well, coaches are afraid, so they run to analytics.
Frank did not fear. Frank was aggressive, and he probably got more criticism for being too aggressive.
You're right.
So yeah, there were a lot. That was something that was bothersome because earlier I think is it was mentioned that we should not be diminishing Frank as a coach. We didn't fire him. That's the biggest diminishing of somebody's career. So it was just strange, and I'm going to let you kind of continue down the rabbit hole.
Right. Well, there's so many quotes here that we're kind of going to break down and talk about and see how we react to them because, like I said, this press conference at best was baffling, and it was arguably, like I said, disheartening. And you could even go worse than that, I think, and be completely reasonable in doing
nationally,
so.
some people have been worse.
Very much so. Here we go. Why did you bypass coaches on your staff that already have head coaching experience? Why was Jeff Saturday, is a question, with no college or NFL experience, a better fit for this franchise? Jim Irsay, you said it, because he's a better fit. That is a quote from your owner, Colts fans. Why is he a better fit? Because he's a better fit. Are you serious? That's the answer that you give? Why is he a better fit? Because he's a better fit. And it's not... Jim didn't seem like he was stoning or this reporter who asked this question. It seemed like he was like, well, somebody agrees with me. Yes, because he's a better fit. Like it wasn't like he was trying to be a jerk to him. Like I think he thought that this guy realizes that, yes, he's a better fit. Why is he a better fit? Oh, yeah, because he's a better fit, of course. Yes, he's a better fit. Like, just another incredibly puzzling moment about how a coach fits into this franchise. And here's what I will say. I do think Jeff Saturday fits in this franchise because he's been here before. He cares a ton. He will win every press conference he does, I think, after we heard what he said on Wednesday when he had kind of his own press conference for the week.
Which should have been the focus of Monday.
Yes, you're right.
That should have been Jeff Saturday's press conference.
And it wasn't even close.
He was a cardboard cutout along the podium.
Yep. But everything mostly was directed to Jim Irsay. Some was directed to Chris Ballard, who was up there and who absolutely did not want to be up there. There was not a bone in Chris Ballard's body that wanted to be sitting up there.
He had to be there, though.
He did. He absolutely had to because the coach is fired. You're hiring a new coach. So here's Chris Ballard. After the game yesterday, of course, this was on Monday, Mr. Irsay and I had visited, and it was spirited, like they can be, because we're both passionate about what we do.
Which means they both didn't agree
exactly.
on what they were doing.
There was not agreement between Jim Irsay and Chris Ballard about letting Frank Reich go, at least at the beginning of the discussion. That is inarguable, based on what Chris Ballard said. Maybe they came to an understanding later or an agreement later,
and maybe not.
And maybe they didn't. Jim Irsay says that Chris Ballard's job is safe. He said he hasn't even considered moving on.
Not even in my consciousness?
Not even in my consciousness. He's a winner. He was highly sought after when we brought him here. It's not in my consciousness. However,
what struck me the most from that press conference is when Jim said that. Now, do I believe him? Maybe not, but that's what impacted me the most.
Another question that was posed to him is, why should we believe you? Credit to Nate Atkins of the Indy Star for asking a very good question. Why? Like you said that Matt Ryan was your 2-year answer. That's not the case. You said a week ago that Frank was safe. That's not the case. So why should Colts fans, why should Colts Nation believe any words that are coming out of your mouth right now? And
quartiles.
Exactly. Well, quartiles. Exactly.
Upper quartiles.
His
Upper
answer was,
quartiles.
I've never hired a losing head coach. We're the 4th winningest team in the league. It's not about belief. It's a fact. It's about what we've done. We're better than most all. It's that simple. Our record proves it over time. So basically, guys, Jim Irsay is saying that he is right because since the year 2000, the Colts have the 4th most wins in the NFL. He says that he made the right decision to fire Frank Reich because the Colts won a bunch of games with Peyton Manning and Tony Dungy. He is right now because of what happened in the 2000s. Not because they've won one playoff game in the past 7, 8 years, whatever it's been. Not because they've made the playoffs They haven't won the AFC South, rather, since 2014. But because the Indianapolis Colts as a franchise have been one of the better franchises since the turn of the century, which was 22 years ago. That is why Jim Irsay says that we should believe him now because he's making the right decision now, and that all is well because he's never hired a losing coach. So,
yeah.
That's it. That's what else is there to say?
On one hand, it came off as arrogant. On the other hand, I'm not sure what he's supposed to say. Just trust me. There's no reason to believe. I guess he could have been a little more humble about that. But I don't know. I thought Chris Ballard and some of his comments were that's what really stuck out to me. Jim was Jim, right? I mean, to a certain extent, Jim Irsay was Jim Irsay. I thought Chris Ballard's comment of something like, "You've been kicking me in the rear about wide receivers, drafting receivers for year, and now all of a sudden the offensive line isn't good enough." It's like, well, you're supposed to have both, right? And also
multitask.
Yeah, and also you sunk a lot of money in the offensive line. So
I think at some level he was trying to be humorous. I think because he's done that with us before in settings, and in this setting it didn't work.
Yeah,
no, it didn't.
It didn't come off that way.
I'm guessing. I'm just guessing.
Okay.
Because again, like Dave said, he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
He had to be there, and in a different tenor of press conference, I think he would have played a better role. But when your boss is kind of running it, it makes it difficult. And then when, in my mind, again, you start inferring things that he didn't agree with probably making both moves, firing Frank and bringing in Jeff Saturday. And again, please, I'm not criticizing Jeff Saturday. I'm not.
Right.
But to be so unconventional, I just, one thing I default to is the bad news is they're 3-5-1. The really bad news is they've got 8 games to go. So where like Jeff Saturday said, we'll see where this goes because I don't know. Well, it can go in a lot of different directions, including it can get worse. One thing when I talked to when Jim Irsay called me on Tuesday and talked to Bob Kravitz and I, is he was irate finally about the idea they're tanking. And the thing is, I'm not sure they can help but tank. I think they can play balls out as much as they want to. And how many wins do you see on the schedule? 2. So. But that's why this is really an odd time for the franchise. And again, I don't think Monday really helped give it the direction that they thought it would.
I think that if they're going to win anything down the stretch, they're going to have to win like they did against Kansas City. Special teams are going to have to make big plays.
Can you win with Sam?
Defense is going to stand up. I don't know if he can. That's the thing. I think that maybe he can get some points and then the defense can close it out late. Maybe he can generate a big play. But that's... It's not consistent. It's not even close to consistent. Thinking that, well, maybe he can do it this week. Well, maybe he can do it the next week.
The format to win with Ellinger, and again, he's in an untenable situation too. It's the Washington game. That's how they're going to win moving forward with Sam Ellinger until they get things fixed, until the offensive line can do something, until JT can be a factor, a force. It's going to be 16-10. Can the defense close it out, which they should have done against Washington, but they didn't. In this league, scoring 14 points a game ain't going to cut it. You can't compete with 14 points a game.
What kind of sense did you get about the Saturday hire for long term? Because obviously he has to, because of the Rooney Rule, interview other coaches after the year, at least pretend like they're legitimate interviews. Did you guys get the sense that he basically handpicked his guy to be the future coach? He just brought in Jeff because he likes Jeff and wanted to give him an opportunity to finish out the rest of the year?
I think that's more along the lines of, he wants to give Jeff an opportunity. And Jeff has been a consultant with the team in the past. And, they talked about it on Monday about Jim called him during the game and wanted to talk about the offensive line and, was asking why the offensive line is so bad. So Jeff's a guy that Jim Irsay has gone to for...
Well, the consulting thing he's done is on the offensive line.
Right. He's gone
primarily.
For understanding about what's going on in the past. So Jim Irsay trusts Jeff Saturday and his opinions. But at the end of the day, you're going from talking about pancake blocks on Get Up at 8 o'clock on Monday morning to coaching an NFL team. And it's night and day from consulting to coaching. And I think Jeff Saturday could be a good NFL coach. Like you've said, Chap, I'm not trying to degrade anything about Jeff Saturday when I'm talking about this, but Jim Irsay has more than earned criticism for how things have gone this year, for how that press conference has gone. And I'm not even done, guys. I'm not even done about this.
Go ahead. Keep it going. Go ahead.
Jim starts.
Well, can I finish? Like,
Yeah,
do you guys think
yeah.
there will be a legitimate coaching search after the season?
Oh yeah, I do. I think it'll be legitimate. I don't because first of all, I don't think this team is going to go even 5-3, 4-4 down the stretch. Like that would make things kind of muddling. Like maybe if he goes 6-2, 7-1, then he's very much. I think he's your coach. And even though you have to go through the official hiring process, he's going to be the guy because he's already been in and proven it. But if he goes 2-6, which is I think a possibility that it's that or
playing
worse.
hard.
Very
with this team playing hard.
Yeah, with the team playing hard, just because they can't score points.
Right.
Like defense might be pretty darn good, but they can't score points. And there's going to come a point where there is going to be, if this offense continues to only score 14 points a game, it's very reasonable to think there will be a back-breaking point for this defense where the straw breaks the camel's back and they're done. And they cannot give the same effort week after week. And I don't want that to seem like it's like criticizing these defensive players because they care about what they're doing. They're putting their effort in every day, but it's just understandable to think that moment is coming.
Mental fatigue is real.
Yes.
Like, no matter what you do, you reach a breaking point.
Right. So all that to say, I just think it's going to take a Herculean effort for him to earn the job after this year.
I hope you're right.
One thing to keep in mind, and there was a lot of stir over the Colts hiring a guy from the outside and the Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule does not apply,
right,
for an interim coach because it can't. It simply can't. You can't fire your coach on Monday and bring in 3 guys to interview for the next. So that's not even, to me, an issue.
Right.
And to sort of attack this franchise on minority hiring practices is ludicrous. Tony Dungy, Jim Caldwell, Alan Williams. I mean, on and on. Reggie, all these minority coaches. This team's been at the forefront. So let's just keep things in perspective. The Rooney Rule was a non-issue for this.
Right. And that question, the Rooney Rule, I'm glad you bring that up because that can take us to that question. Jim said that some of you guys make it out to be a problem or perception, but you need hits. You've got to do it. I understand. Jim says right here later in that, kind of taking it to the next level, I was a broadcast journalism major too. There's always going to be a lot of creative and a lot of words said. I don't know. Are you guys ever held accountable? Do your editors bring you in and say, well, you wrote that stuff. It was all wrong. You're fired. We get held accountable. That's for sure. So there goes Jim taking a shot at the media. I don't think most fans care about shots at the media, and that's fine. I'm not here for sympathy for the fans, but once you start taking shots at the media for reasons that are beyond me, media never played it down this year. Media isn't the highest paid offensive line in football.
I didn't miss a 42-yard field goal in
We didn't
Houston.
miss a 42-yard field goal. We're not 3-5-1.
Media certainly doesn't get paid what those guys get paid either.
Haven't won week 1 since 2014. Haven't won the AFC South since 2014. Media hasn't done any of that. You come out taking shots at the media because you fired your coach after week 9 of the season, because you benched a future Hall of Fame quarterback for a second-year guy who has no experience, because you hired a head coach with no NFL or college experience, is baffling at best, again. And I use that word probably because I know I shouldn't go any further. And so that's where I'm living right now, kind of in this professional setting, doing this podcast with you guys, kind of teetering on that edge about as far as I'm willing to go personally here, professionally, to describe all that. So that was, I found that to be entirely distasteful. So there we go. I'll take a step further. Incredibly distasteful to do that in that moment. Maybe people out there don't care because, like I said, shot at the media. Most fans probably won't care too much, but
I just default back to also that was Jeff Saturday's day. He's up on the stage and it was his introduction to again a wild day. This thing happened like in the blink of an eye. It happened like over 12 hours. You know, the hours get a little bit fuzzy, but essentially Jim Irsay called Jeff at midnight at 1 o'clock, you know, Sunday night, Monday morning, and said, "What do you think? Will you help me out?" And then Jeff thinks about it, sleeps on it, and prays with his wife, and they get back together by the phone by 9 or 10 o'clock, and he said, "We'll do this." So it happened, boom, quick. There wasn't any 2-week lead up to this, so it should have been Jeff's day. It just should have been Jeff's day, and what we got on Wednesday, which was outstanding, and that's who Jeff is. It should have been Monday night, but that's under the bridge.
Yep. A little bit more from this press conference before
you got more?
Really. Oh, I always have more. This was kind of a little bit from what we were talking earlier about. Anyway, Jim Irsay said Don Shula was 32 years old when he was younger, and he became a head coach. Had some years with the Lions. Took over the reins of the Dolphins in 1963. Says, "No, the game is not different. We don't build rockets to go to Mars. We're not nuclear scientists." I strongly disagree. The game of football is completely different in 2022 than it was in 1963. There's some similarities. There's a little pigskin. There's 11 guys on each side. You're both trying to move the ball downfield, keep the team from moving down the field. But everything is different. How you go about doing all those things is different. The people you need in the building, the number of people you need, the types of people you need are different.
The interaction with those people.
The interaction with people is different. The interaction with fans is different. The media is completely different. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar organization with television rights deals that's different. Everything is different now than it was in 1963. Trying to say that Don Shula was a young coach with little experience so that Jeff Saturday is the right decision for your franchise now is ridiculous. It is baffling.
Word of the day.
Go. It is baffling.
I wish I had a little dinger where you just ding, ding, ding. Whenever he says baffling, we could just hit that because my finger would get worn out.
It would. It'd already be. We need new batteries already for that little dinger. Now, there's one more thing I'll say, and I'll kind of wrap up my thoughts on.
I'm enjoying this. Keep
going.
going.
Thank you. I will. I appreciate this. Jim Irsay saying, "I don't know what goes into sausages." There's your sausage quote.
I love that quote.
It was fantastic.
That and quartiles are my two favorites.
The upper quartile of the top quartile. I just hope that we're in the upper quartile of the top quartile of Colts podcasts that you all listen to out there.
He said quartile 3 times and once we're in the upper quartile.
Yes.
And of that quartile, we're in the top quartile of that quartile.
Yes, it was something. Anyway, I don't know what goes into sausage, but I do know how to build a football team because I've been around for 52 years, and from all the people, from Paul Brown to Don Shula, there it is again, to sitting with Ted Marchibroda and understanding what you do during a week of preparation. I understand that, and I understand that he, Jeff Saturday, is fully capable of doing this and more. Okay. Jim Irsay has been around the NFL and been around the game a lot more than other owners have. Absolutely. I will not deny that. He knows more about football than most other owners have. Absolutely. Owners do. Absolutely. Will not deny that. Jim Irsay, he was the general manager, chap. You can correct me if I'm wrong here. From about 1984 when they moved to Indianapolis to the early 90s, Bill Tobin came in 94. Is that really when he took over more personnel stuff, or would you say that Jim Irsay was still in charge of that through the mid?
They brought in Robert Irsay brought in Bill Tobin.
Right, and that was in 94.
Jimmy didn't know at the time that was done, which was awkward then.
Right.
And Jimmy took over after his dad had the stroke.
Took over ownership at that point, right?
Not technically ownership, but he started.
Is that a better
yeah,
word?
that's a good word. Because I think he took over ownership officially like in 97, whatever it was. But he started running the team in like 95.
Okay. But he was like the GM before that.
Correct.
Like when who was actually charged with kind of building the roster, which is
Correct.
what GMs
Correct.
do, between 84 and 93, before
Correct.
Bill Tobin came in 94. So between 1984 and 1993, the Colts won 59 games and lost 100 games. They had the fourth worst record in football
Lower quartile.
during that time. The bottom quartile of the bottom quartile. Only the Phoenix Cardinals back then, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers
Did your
were
homework,
worse.
didn't you?
The Indianapolis Colts, during that time that Jim Irsay was general manager of the Colts, scored 16.2 points per game, which was the worst in the league. Now, Jim Irsay knows more about football than me, but that does not shield him from criticism. When teams were built that were Super Bowl winning teams, Jim Irsay played a role. I cannot deny that. But Bill Polian came in and built a lot. Before that, Tobin was there and drafted cornerstone guys like a Marshall Faulk, Marvin Harrison,
Tarek Glenn.
Dwight Freeney was in there. I think that was Polian.
No, that may have been Polian's first guy.
I think so. The cornerstones for that Super Bowl winning and multi-AFC divisional champion, 12 wins a year team were picked by Bill Tobin and Bill Polian. So I know why Jim is claiming credit, because he has a hand in this. And when you become owner or steward in 95 and onward, the buck stops with you. You get the final say in things like Peyton Manning over Ryan Leaf. You have a big hand in hiring coaches like Tony Dungy. And you have a hand in hiring a general manager like a Bill Polian, who came in and made all these rules. Not all these rules, made all these great moves to bring in great players. But ultimately, that's the general manager that does a lot of those things, is building the team, building the roster, building the talent. So I'm hesitant to give Jim Irsay as much credit as Jim Irsay is giving himself for what happened to the Colts in the early 2000s. If I'm completely off base, feel free to tell me. But I think that he deserves some credit, but not all the credit in the world, which is what he sounded like he was trying to do at this press conference. Give himself the credit for everything that has gone on, and therefore what his decision is right now with the Colts is the best decision. That Jeff Saturday is going to be good because we've been good in the past. So that's, like I said, that's really my final thought on the press conference when it came down to it. I thought that what Jim Irsay took credit for was baffling. His decision to hold the press conference, well, you have to hold the press conference, but what he said was baffling. And where this franchise is right now is confusing.
It's as far away from being a championship contender as it's been in a while. It really is. Because when they were god-awful in 97 and when they were god-awful in 2011, there was a light that you could point to. It was Peyton Manning and it was Andrew Luck. And now what do you point to? You've got to get your bearings. And until you get to the draft in the offseason, I don't know that you can. I don't know what they can do over the last 8 weeks to give semblance of we can come out of this and we're headed in the right direction. Because now maybe the offensive line starts playing better. I mean, we've had 9 games, and we're waiting.
Yeah. What evidence would you have that it's going to change right now?
Correct.
Right.
So we'll see. That's the hard part. Is I think what fans want is reassurance that okay, it's really bad now and all that. But you know what? We can see our way out of this, and you can't. And to say otherwise is just wrong. And Chris, before I mentioned how Jim Irsay was upset about the tanking when he talked to me on Tuesday, Chris Ballard was the same way on Monday, and I understand that. If my heart and soul rests with this team, and whether you're a player, a coach, a GM, whatever, and you hear the word tanking, it's got to make your blood boil. I don't think they're consciously tanking. Now I question sticking with Ellinger. I just do. I think I think he's in an unwinnable position. I just do. Now, whether going to Nick Foles helps or going back to Matt Ryan would help, I don't know. But to think that they've just cashed it in, that's why I thought that was one of Chris's more strident positions Monday, and I understood it. When you're questioning his integrity, which I wouldn't do. But all fans want is reason to believe. And right now you're giving them, again, they're going to go to the Raiders. There is a game on Sunday, isn't there, Joe?
It's still on the schedule.
Yeah, we'll see if we get to it. But you're going into there with the head coach who hasn't coached at this level, with the play caller who hasn't called plays at any level, and a quarterback who will make his third start. I mean, that's not encouraging.
You bring up go ahead, Joe.
I wanted to talk a little bit about Chris Ballard for the moment, because it seems pretty obvious that we're at a point in his tenure where Irsay has kind of taken over in terms of making the decisions. He clearly brought in Saturday. It's pretty clear he was the one who made the Ellinger move. I mean,
Carson Wentz.
He made the Carson Wentz move.
I mean, you got to think after the season, he's got to bring someone in to be a new GM who he trusts again to handle the franchise. Because if not, just get rid of Ballard and make all the moves yourself.
Well, but you're going to bring on a new GM if that's where they go, and I hope they don't, because I don't like to see guys get fired. But you're going to bring in a GM knowing what the power structure is, and the power structure is going to be that when it comes to those flashpoint decisions, the owner's going to make the decision, and that's not healthy for a franchise.
Hopefully not, but neither is what's going on right now. I mean, he's got to convince some kind of GM that, this is your job again. What happened with Chris was they brought in the Wentz. I wasn't about it. It turned out how I thought it would, and my trust was lost in Ballard, which seems to be the case based on what's been happening. For this franchise to make the right decisions going forward, I feel like he's got to bring a GM in who he trusts and allows to make decisions for the franchise again.
Chris Ballard will not quit. He won't quit. He's got too much pride. He's got too much confidence. He will have to be shown the door, and if that happens, I don't know. I mean, again, whoever asked the question, Kevin Bowen, I think, asked Jim Irsay about Chris, and he said, again, he's not even in my consciousness. That's not going to happen, or that's not going to happen, whatever. And things change, so we'll see, but again, there's not a shred of Chris Ballard that will quit on this job. He won't do it.
For all the praise that Jim Irsay gave Chris Ballard in that answer, saying he was highly sought after when he came here, great indication this organization, he wanted to come here. He could have gone anywhere he wanted. You guys tried to diminish. That's your words. You have no substance to it because there's no truth in it. The guy's a winner. He's been immensely successful. No one is perfect. We lose a lot. He talks about compared to Michael Jordan.
Is Michael Jordan coming up?
Exactly. Yep, that's Michael Jordan right there. You know how many shots Michael Jordan missed, how many games he lost. In this league, it's tough. But he was he was effusive of his praise of Chris Ballard. And to your point, Joe, then let Chris Ballard make the decisions.
Yeah.
Don't kneecap him and make them all yourself, all the big ones. If you don't like how he makes big decisions, then fire him. You can't have it both ways. Jim Irsay is trying to have his cake and eat it too here. Remain somewhat in control of the roster of this franchise and the goings-on of his franchise that most owners have absolutely nothing to do with in the NFL. And then at the same time say that you have this guy who's one of the best in the league and is a winner, and he's the guy who's in charge.
To me, that's the biggest thing that needs to happen for this franchise to be able to move forward is to, if Chris Ballard's not the guy anymore, bring someone else in and allow them to run your organization, because unless you want to take the time to be a full-time GM, which is probably more of a commitment than Jim Irsay wants to make right now, it's not going to go anywhere with allowing your GM to do half the job, but when it comes to the critical decisions, just pulling the strings yourself.
Yeah, if you don't trust him to make the big decisions, then what's he doing there?
Yep.
Is what you're saying. What's he doing there? And that's a great question. On Saturday, Parks Frazier is going to... What, you got?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah. On Saturday, Parks Frazier is going to call plays for the first time in his young career. 30 years old, the young man Parks, from Mississippi. went to Murray State. Go Racers.
Is that older or younger than Don Shula was?
30 is younger than Don Shula was, in fact. Yeah, we're getting in there quickly. So he has been a passing game specialist, assistant quarterbacks coach this year. Before that, he was Frank Reich's assistant, a spry go-getter at 25 on the staff with Frank, and just learning the ropes. They liked his grit. They liked his tenacity. He's in the building. His jib. Exactly. Like the cut of your jib. He's probably in the building for like 18 hours a day, minimum, most days during those days. And we're back to that again, is what he said as he spoke to us today on Wednesday as we're taping this podcast, saying he came and pointed to the door, which was a glass door there to the media room, and says, "That's the first time I've seen the light of day besides practice in 4 days since all this went down." So he's once again grinding, man. And as a Colts fan, you got to love it. You love to see the guy grinding. You love to see a young guy, I think, who has been here for 5 years get an opportunity to call plays. But at the same time, again, and I'm not, just like Jeff Saturday, I don't want to say one bad word about Parks Frazier. But holy heck, he's the one getting the job to call plays when you have other guys on the staff, again, who have guys who have a lot more experience in the NFL. Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach, has been a head coach before in his career on the college level. And Parks Frazier is the guy who's going to get the call. I was really impressed with him in his press conference, honestly, today. He doesn't have the same charisma as a Jeff Saturday, who has a whole lot more media experience. I'll tell you that, obviously, since he's been in front of the media so much more. And he's a member of the media, for crying out loud now.
He was preparing for his show when he got the call from Jimmy.
Exactly. But Parks has been, like, he was professional. He was as detailed as he wanted to be, brought up a lot of times. I'm not going to tell you that, basically, because I want to retain the competitive advantage, which for him, good for you.
Correct.
You need every advantage you can now, so, and then you know it. So he didn't get into almost any details, but was in control, was professional. We will see what Parks Frazier can do. I'd imagine there's going to be a lot of similarities to Frank Reich, because he's spent his entire 5 years with Frank Reich. There are probably some little things, he does differently.
Which we won't see.
Exactly.
Which we won't notice.
We won't notice what exactly it is. But yeah, Parks Frazier's now the guy calling plays there. So they're kind of they've turned the new leaf on offense to a spry 30-year-old who now, kind of like Jeff Saturday, has the opportunity to try to impress with absolutely no experience before in his career.
Yeah, and a couple of things. I mean, and Jeff mentioned it on the strange thing from a guy who writes is it's awkward when you say Saturday said Wednesday that Ellinger will be his coach on Sunday. To put 3-day references in a sentence is awkward. But the thing is, he mentioned that we're understaffed. We're understaffed. Self-inflicted.
Yep.
And I mentioned that sort of to Parks today, is that he's calling plays, okay, first time. But up until 3 weeks ago, the foundation of game planning was Marcus Brady and Frank Reich.
Right.
I'm guessing really, really heavy on Frank. Everybody had their hands in it. They did. But the big, baking of the cake was Marcus and Frank. Well, now they're gone. So, and you game plan specifically for each week. So there are serious changes. So calling plays is one thing, but you got to get, the game plan in place before you can call them. So it's really interesting. And he wasn't going to share where they've gone and who's doing what. Everybody will have their hands in it. But at the end of the day, the buck stops with Parks Frazier. And probably more than anything, I'm curious what the offense looks like, how efficient the offense is, because it wasn't working. It hasn't been working. And why do we believe it will work now? So many times when you get an interim coach, not so many times, but occasionally, there's a boost, an emotional boost because there's a new guy in the building and all that.
Raiders last year.
Right, yep. Right. And Rick Venturi was 1-10. God bless him. Back in 91, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it's. I go back to what the great Tom Moore always used to say. It's players, not plays. So you can have God's best game plan Sunday, And if you don't execute it, if you can't execute it, what's it matter? So I'm curious. I really want to see. And like you said, I totally am on board with you. Is if this doesn't work offensively, it's not Parks Frazier.
Not at all.
It's not his fault.
Nope.
So you've used the word baffling so much on the Monday. Right now, I'm curious moving forward, and that's as good as I can go as curious.
Joe, when we kind of get into the nitty-gritty here of the offense and where it goes from here, I think Chap hit the nail on the head saying that execution is the key, and that's a word that Park said a couple times. It doesn't matter if you call the best plays out there. This team has not executed very well the game plan over the past couple weeks, so it would take a radical change in something behind the scenes for things in front of the curtain now to do better. And God bless it. That's what they're hoping for. But hope is, in this case, probably pretty meager.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be one thing if maybe this was week 4 or something and there was still reason to believe that there's a few bad games that we can turn around the ship. I don't think it's going to happen. Speaking purely as a fan for a second, I lost hope on this season weeks ago. I mean, I really did. Maybe 5-6 weeks into the season, you saw that this offense was not going to be good enough to make any kind of noise, even if you miraculously squeaked into the playoffs. So it's kind of a mess right now, but I kind of have my sights set on the draft and what the team can do.
There's 8 games to play.
I know there's 8 games to play, and it's going to sound messed up, and I know this is completely against what this team is doing. If they don't win another game, I'll be fine with it because
you're a tanker.
I'm a tanker. I'm a tanker all the way. That's just kind of what you got to do at certain points in time to get the players necessary. I mean, he was talking about the quartiles and how much they won. You had the first freaking pick in the draft, and you take Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's neck gets hurt. The team all of a sudden can only win 2 games without Peyton Manning. You get the first pick again, and you luck into Andrew Luck. So sometimes you need a little bit of fortune. You need things to go wrong before they can go right.
Well, there's no question. NFL does not reward 8-8 or 8-9 nowadays. If you're not going to be any good, be bad.
That's why I'm mad at the Pacers right now. They're winning too many games.
But they're fun watching.
They sure are.
These guys right now are not fun to watch.
And I hope at very least Saturday and Frazier can bring fun bad to the table.
But the only way you're fun bad is if you're competitive on offense.
Yeah.
You can't be fun bad and have a championship level defense. This isn't championship level defense, but it's close.
It's divisional winning level defense easily.
But that just means you're getting beat 26-3.
Right.
They played their butts off in New England.
They were really good, man. I was there. They were really good.
And it's got nothing to do with how bad the Patriots might be offensively. The Colts dictated that game.
Kwity Paye is a player.
A very solid game.
And they got beat by 23 points.
Yep.
So that's the only thing is I understand the curiosity level and will it be fun bad? It's only fun bad. Again, I was there in 91 with Venturi, and that was not fun bad. That was bad. When you're scoring 6 points a game, when you're getting beat either 9-6 or 20-3, it's not. That's not fun. Even though I'll give you this, Joe. Even though the light at the end of the tunnel is maybe a top 5 pick, because right now they're 14th.
14th. There's still 13 teams below them.
Right
But
now.
there's only 5 with 2 wins. You know what's going to hurt these guys? The tie.
Yeah.
The tie can help you to get it, and it can hurt you in the draft. Mm-hmm. So, but there's only 5 teams that have like 2 wins. So it's there. It can be there. But it's
one of them's the Raiders.
What it reminds me of, one of my all-time great movies was Shawshank Redemption. To get free, Andy had to crawl through. You know what he had to crawl
500
through?
yards of excrement.
Right.
To get out.
The players hate to hear this, but I hope that's not where we're at. I really do, because I've experienced it from the outside, and it's not fun. Even though when you get free and Andy raises his hands up in the rain, you're free. It's a long journey to get there, long, nasty journey to get there.
What does Hancock Health's membership in the Mayo Clinic Care Network mean for you? It means our independent health network now has access to the knowledge and resources of the world leader in medicine. It means your Hancock Health doctor can now consult with Mayo Clinic specialists to confirm a diagnosis or treatment plan. And it means that together we're making health possible for you. Learn more about our new clinical collaboration at hancockregional.org/Mayo Clinic. Joe, as you said, there's a game this weekend.
That is the latest you've ever read that.
It's still on schedule. We're 45 minutes in to this podcast.
Contractually obligated.
Exactly. Usually get to it within 5 to 10. Nope. We made it to 45 today. The Colts are 3-5-1. They visit the 2-6 Vegas Raiders. 4:05 p.m. kickoff. I'm still getting used to saying Vegas Raiders. CBS 4 if you're in central Indiana. Let's quickly run down the injury report. We'll touch on some bigger things. I'm not going to go word for word here, but Ashton Doolin designated to return from IR. That'd be a boost back for the...
Probably a couple games. You think a couple more weeks, probably.
I think so. Okay, and we'll see after he practices. Let's see, a couple players rested. Matt Ryan returned to practice on Thursday. That is significant. Did not practice Wednesday. He's back on Thursday. Certainly not going to Chap be anything this weekend, but Jeff Saturdays might have a decision on his hands.
That will be... We talk to Jeff tomorrow again, and I think that's going to be the main thing is
on
what
Friday,
are you going to do
yeah.
at quarterback? Mm-hmm. And again, Irsay told me that it's Jeff's prerogative. Whether you believe that, I don't know. But I'd like to get Jeff's take on quarterbacks.
So you can follow Mike Chappell at mchappell51 on Twitter for exactly what Jeff is going to say on Friday. Follow us at Colts Blue Zone. Joe is at Roto Street Joe. I'm at Dave G.
Actually deleted my Twitter, so you won't be able to find it.
Okay, Colts Blue Zone. Oh, you're
No,
going
my
to Roto
personal
Street. Okay,
tweet.
well, okay. Joe is in solidarity with all the. We're not going to get into that because
It
this
didn't have anything to do with Musk. I just didn't want a Twitter anymore.
Okay, well, congratulations. Yes, you're the lucky one. We have to stay in this hellscape. I think we can say hellscape on the podcast and be okay with that. Mo Alley Cox with an ankle did not participate in practice on Wednesday. That's pretty significant. And Jelani Woods with a shoulder injury. So both tight ends, the top two guys there, in danger. And Mo Alley Cox had a boot on his ankle. So not a good sign. We'll have to watch that this week. Deion Jackson, a knee injury, did not practice on Wednesday. At least Jonathan Taylor did. Limited participate on Wednesday, as was Ryan Kelly with a knee.
Didn't JT sound semi-optimistic?
Semi-optimistic is what came out of the locker room today. He said that on Tuesday or on Wednesday after Wednesday's practice that he felt better than he had in a while. So,
yeah, but the only caveat is he said the same thing prior to last game. I feel like I'm doing the things I used to do.
But then he gets back, and so he'll play, but he might hurt himself again.
The issue they're having with him right now, and the concern from my end is this is going to be the case all year.
Yeah,
it's an ankle, and
you want to just give him a little more time.
I don't know that matters. I think you give him another week, and there's still the risk of doing that again. So I know what you're saying. I think maybe he tries to play, and you hope he doesn't tweak it again. But this is an ankle, and this may be with him the rest of the season. I hope not, but it might be.
Other side of the ball, the Raiders put their all-pro tight end, or at least a Pro Bowl tight end, Darren Waller, on injured reserve. So that's
Hunter Renfrow.
He's on injured reserve too?
Yep, just came across my thing.
Wow. Okay, that's significant for sure. He's a weapon for them.
He torched the Colts last year.
I remember.
Didn't he have the winning play?
He did.
Basically, was it third and whatever?
Yep,
and tossed it up.
Big, long, Kenny Moore was in coverage.
Darius Leonard jumped up in the air, and Derek Carr got away from
past him. Exactly.
The mobile, elusive Derek Carr.
Yep. And Derek Carr, a full participant in practice, even though he has a back injury. But that's the most important things when it comes to the Raiders injury report. Joe, since you put together this extensive Raiders preview, what do you think are the most important
you got
keys?
3 minutes.
Exactly. What are the most important keys for this that we usually spend 20 minutes on to get in the next 2 minutes, eh?
I mean, looking at the Raiders, obviously Josh Jacobs is having a great year. He's fourth in the NFL in rushing, averaging 5.4 yards a carry, so taking care of him will be big. For an offensive line that's struggling in the Colts, the Raiders are last in the NFL in sacks.
Ooh.
So only 9. Now, Max Crosby has 6.5 of them. He's a very good player. They brought in Chandler Jones. He has half a sack at this point in the season.
Syracuse's own Chandler Jones.
I would have bet on that.
Was doing so well. He had like 6 sacks in one game last year for the Cardinals, didn't he? Or at least 5.
He did against the Titans, like
Yeah.
1 or something. So hopefully the offensive line can get together a little bit and hold up against this Raiders front that's not been nearly as good as the Patriots at getting after the quarterback. Obviously, Davante Adams is one of the best in the league. He's been really up and down. 5 games with 95-plus yards, 3 games under 40. He had a great game last week. Maybe he dips back down in Gilmore's coverage. We'll see. If you can contain Davante Adams with no Waller and Renfro out there, I think you're in pretty good shape defensively.
Yeah, I would agree with you there for sure. And they usually have a slew of guys that they can throw to, but with 2 big targets out, it comes down to Davante Adams and what he's able to accomplish. And if you have Gilmore out there, you feel pretty good on him. But if he's on the other side of the ball, and if Faison's in there, or even Isaiah Rodgers going up against Davante Adams is no easy task. So that's going to be a huge matchup to watch because he's obviously, in the passing game, Chap, their biggest threat.
Well, I think we're going to see, it'll be the one-on-one with he and Gilmore. And by and large, Stefan's played at a top level.
Played pretty darn well. Like it was a 50-50 ball against Terry McLaurin, and McLaurin won it. Like that's the one that you point to if you're trying to pick out the one thing. Like Gilmore, that like he won the game in Denver.
And Heineke had
plays.
like 10 seconds
exactly
to throw it.
And a day to throw.
And how long can you? But no, I think by and large, of all the moves the Colts have made this season, bringing in Gilmore, he's held up his end of the bargain
completely.
Another one of my keys is obviously don't turn the ball over. I say this every week, but the Raiders have the fewest takeaways in the NFL with 5. So
where the Colts have now 17.
Yeah, 17 because they got one last week.
17. They tied for the league with New England. The one thing this Raiders defense is decent at is against the run. They're 14th against the run, and they're 7th in yards per carry, allowing just 4.2. So might need a few plays out of the passing game because if it's just run, that's what the Raiders would prefer to defend.
One thing I took away, and we're inferring a lot, but from Parks Frazier is in these situations you sort of simplify, and instead of doing, I'm exaggerating, instead of doing 20 things okay, do like 8 things really, really good. I think they're going to go back and they're going to try to be who they want to be. They're going to lean on their run game, and I think they're going to lean on that run game until it hurts, until the game is out of hand. 25 carries for Jonathan Taylor. I mean, it's easy to say because the game can get away from you, but
right.
They are going to try to really lean on the run game and just have Ellinger manage, I guess, is in that frame. But maybe I'm wrong, but this just feels like they've got to almost make it a, North Carolina 4 corners offense and really kind of simplify the game and shorten the game.
If it was my first time calling plays, I won't want them to ask, why didn't I run the ball more? So
No. It should be, and you stuck with their run so long. Yeah. Why? And I'd have an answer for that.
Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly.
As long as he suits up.
And the game allowed us to keep running the ball.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to generate big plays, Joe, which is one of your keys, like Jonathan Taylor is one of the guys who can create a big play. So it's him, it's Pittman. Like try to go to your horses as often as possible.
I think we all realize this offense is, even if it improves, it's not good enough to consistently drive up and down the field. You need big plays. Pierce has provided them. Pittman, not as many as you'd like this year, so hopefully he can get something. Paris Campbell has actually shown you something. If you want to talk about one of the few bright spots this year, he's been healthy and he's starting to look explosive as the year goes along. And defense, I think this defense is capable of maybe getting a big turnover. Isaiah Rodgers is a very fast return man and one of the better return men in the league. So you're going to need some kind of splash plays if you're going to win.
For crying out loud, block somebody. 9 sacks last week was just awful. I saw every one of them. It was painful.
Somebody explain to me what blocking scheme has Braden Smith blocking inside and leaving Matthew Judon one-on-one against Deion Jackson, who just got back in the game from hyperextending his knee. Is that Braden Smith miscommunication on what he's supposed to do? But there's no scheme that has your outside linebacker of that level going against a running back. I don't care if it's Jonathan Taylor or I don't care if it's Edgerrin James.
Right.
You can't do it.
Doesn't matter who it is out there. Doesn't matter. Can't do it. Won't do it.
Shouldn't do it. Better not do it.
No.
Get you fired if you do it.
Exactly. And we saw what happened. Yeah.
The story of Hancock Health is all about you and everything you need to live your healthiest life. Like Hancock Regional, one of the nation's safest hospitals. and an independent health network with over 70 doctors at more than 30 locations around East Central Indiana. We're growing and evolving to help further your story. And we're just getting started. See all the ways Hancock Health and you can work together to make health possible at hancockhealth.org.
FanDuel has the Colts 5.5-point underdogs to the Raiders over-under set at 42.5. So
42.5. I don't get it.
I don't know. They're predicting a good amount of points there, somewhere around the 23 to 18 ball game, something like that. Based on what? Based on what? Based on
you guys are the betting guys. I
right? Well,
I gave it up. I got tired of paying off.
Yeah. Well, because the Raiders' defense is terrible, but the Colts' defense has been just as woeful as of late.
The offense.
Yeah. The offense. My bad. Defense has been very, very good. But, yeah. Joe, how about you go first with your prediction? I'll go next, then Chap can wrap things up.
I'm going to take the Raiders 20-10. I think the defense will once again have a good performance, but the offense will be terrible and put the defense in bad spots, turnovers, sacks. A 10-point loss at this point in the season doesn't feel that bad after 26-3. So I'll go 20-10. What say you?
17-9 Raiders is what I'm going to go with. If there are more points than that, well, more power to you. But I'll go with 17-9.
I've got 17-10.
Oh, hey!
But I like yours because that's 3 field goals. I assume
Exactly.
that's 3.
Yes.
That's not a touchdown and a safety.
No,
is it?
No, it's not. Either that or it's a defensive touchdown and a safety. So
Because one thing, remember what somebody asked Jeff about how aggressive and analytics and all that, and he said, "I take the points." And that, to me, that wasn't a shot at Frank. It was just
no, it wasn't.
I'm going to take points. I'm an offensive lineman. So when it comes down to 4th and 2 from wherever, and there's a field goal chance, he's going to take the field goal.
How you deliver a line makes it very determines the meaning, and that was not a shot at Frank.
No, it wasn't.
Jim Irsay's, however.
Are we back on your baffling road?
Back on there. It's going to be a story for all this week until there's a game, and then perhaps even after that.
But 17-10, I saw the over-under at 42. I'm thinking, there is video. There's actual
video evidence
of what this has gone on.
Maybe they just think the Raiders are just going to slaughter the Colts and score, 25, 30 on their own. Right. That's what they would have to. I'm right there with you.
I'll give them 25.
I'll take the under
they're still
all
not
day.
They're still not getting to the over-under.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I keep going to the same thing. Until this team can find a way to matriculate down the field, I don't know how you stay competitive. It's at some point, the defense can be playing great, and Carr's pretty good. I mean, there's evidence that he's not, but I still think that you doggone it, you got to help your defense, and I just don't think these guys can do it.
You can follow us for Colts news and notes throughout the week at Colts Blue Zone. Mike Chappell is at mchappell51. His work is online at fox59.com and cbs4indy.com. Have a story up right now for his chat with Frank Reich that he had on Tuesday. So we didn't get too much into that chat, but you can read that online if you're interested, because there are obviously a lot of other things that were a little bit more relevant this week, unfortunately for Frank. I'm at DaveG_sports. Joe Hopkins is Twitterless. God bless you, sir.
How about put his phone number out there?
It's 317. You can get in touch with Joe if no. You
I think
can.
I'd rather have my Twitter back than my phone number.
I think that'd probably be a good idea. Hey, Colts and Raiders this weekend, 4:05 kickoff in Vegas. If you're in Central Indiana, check it out on CBS 4. And if you are a masochist, you can join us at 11:30 a.m. for more Colts preview content against the Raiders for the Colts Blue Zone pregame show. Appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week on the Colts Blue Zone podcast.